Hi, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela with Blue Bear Flutes, and of course our website where we make wooden Native American flutes, bluebearflutes.com. You'll find some of the latest and greatest, most affordable Native American made, and hopefully some of the most beautiful Native American flutes you've ever seen. That is, unless you're looking for something high gloss, lacquery, and kind of plasticky looking anyway. We also have tons of videos here on YouTube if you haven't seen them. This isn't my only video. Please don't contact me and say, I seen your video. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, no, please do contact me and tell me that. I get a kick out of it every time. I seen your video and then I play the guessing game, which one. So if you've ever thought about making Native American flutes, this is definitely the right place to be. I do have a book out, which I probably ought to mention in all my videos, but I don't, because that'll lead you to look for Native American flute making books and you might find somebody else's. It may not have all the information. I could go into detail on that, but I'm not going to. Anyway, so today's video is about something that has been kind of popular on the web for a little while, and that is 3D printing. 3D printing has become kind of the easy thing for a lot of people to do. They're making everything from figurines to chess pieces to, I made parts for my car, all kinds of stuff. I've got a couple of antiques, and some of them, the parts that I need for them, they don't make. So I've 3D printed a couple of them. Actually, I say I have, but it's been my youngest son, Makani. He's helped me out a great deal. I've also CNC'd some parts for my car too, by the way. But the CNC, as you may have seen in one of our previous videos about making an agave flute, is something that we use on a regular basis. It helps us get from point A to point B a lot faster. It's not cheating, it's not less handmade, it's not any of that. It's actually just a tool that we use to turn a piece of wood into a piece of wood with holes in it. Really, that's about all that you get out of it, because flutes can't be made without a little handwork. Anyway, this is a 3D printed drone that I have recently discovered on Reddit that somebody had mentioned. They were kind enough to post a link in it. I had joined in their conversation because they asked a very simple question. They had this piece sitting like this and said, I can't make it play, what do I do? And most of you that are familiar with Native American flutes, I'm not putting anybody down because we all start at one level or another, that's what it needs to look like in order for it to play. Of course, it doesn't need to be in these pieces, and that's what I'm here to discuss with you. So 3D printing has some benefits and some advantages. The benefits and advantages I can think of is it has created a small offshoot e-commerce for people who basically don't know how to make Native American flutes, or if they do, they just want to make them out of plastic, or for whatever the case may be. I don't know. There's got to be a reason why it is that people are doing this today. Not a lot of people are, and I'm not putting you guys down if you are. More power to you. But one of the things I am going to discuss today in this 3D printed Native American drone flute, I think it's in the key of F or F sharp. Something I'm going to discuss is its pros and cons. The pros, I think I just told all of them to you. It's quick, easy. You can download a pattern from somewhere and print it out, and as long as the person that designed it did a good job designing it, then it may or may not play properly depending on what you've got going on. The cons, there are many, and I'm going to show some of those to you here. Once again, not putting anybody down, not the guy that designed this particular drone, which I don't even remember what his name is, but I've seen his stuff around, and not putting anybody down that does this and they're selling them on their websites, Etsy, eBay, wherever they're putting them on for sale right now. Not putting y'all down. Like I said, more power to you. But being that it is not made in the way that Native American flutes would have been made for the last couple of years or 100 years even, I want to show everybody what it is that you're getting into so you kind of know. So when these things printed on our Ender 5 Pro 3D printer, they look like this. They basically printed and built up from the bottom, and this is the totem and block that goes on the top of it in its current state. It's kind of neat. I'm not going to tell you that it's the greatest thing in the world and that's what you should be doing, is making Native American flutes this way, because I don't believe you should, for a number of reasons that we're going to get into. This is how the block goes together. If you can't tell my oldest son, when he looked at it, couldn't tell exactly what the shape was, but as soon as I told him it was an eagle, he still couldn't tell what it was. He said it's a little thin back here, and I'm like, imagine the shading of the eagle right here being a cutout. And he's like, oh, okay, I see it. So maybe it's that way for you, maybe not. But one thing you'll notice is there are a lot of fibers up in this thing. And those fibers, if you'll notice too, are on the outside. That's because this particular 3D printer has a thing called, oh gosh, I know I was going to forget it. My youngest boy is really the one who is the 3D printer master, not me. The stringing, I think, is what we call it, or webbing. The webbing that you'll see is inside of it, and it's on the outside of it. It's real easy to fix. That's not a major complaint in my particular case. It's just when the 3D printer is dragging its little carriage from this thing to this thing and printing this and this, because it does all this at one time and builds it from the ground up. It's kind of neat to watch how it does this type of thing, but no, there's a lot of webbing in this one. You got to see that. But anyway, if you see that webbing in there, that is where it's dragging the carriage from one piece of this build to another, and it doesn't completely shut off the printer nozzle. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually kind of a good thing, because it keeps it from having to restart each time it touches something, which can be a bad thing. So I'm going to show you what I do to resolve that issue, and I'm going to leave one of them unburnt and burn the other one so you can kind of see. But if you look in there, you can see that one of them has webbing in it and one of them doesn't now. It's a real easy thing to have to fix here. Now, those of you with 3D printers at home might be cringing right now too, because one of the downfalls of this build that I'm going to tell you, and I know this from having built a number of other things with my son on his 3D printer, is that this is made out of a specific kind of 3D printer filament. And few filaments don't get affected by heat. And when I say don't get affected by heat, I mean, like, if this thing sees 90 degrees, this PLA, this is actually PLA plus, any of you who are curious. Any of you that have ever worked with this know that 98 degrees and this sucker is going to bend like a limp spaghetti noodle. So that's one concern that I have, is it's not very heat resistant at all. And I know this from experience of testing heat resistance with some of the things we've printed. That's why I like my CNC machine or my laser more for my car parts than I do this 3D printer. Although, like I said, it does a good job on some things. And there are other filaments you can get. You can get ABS, you can get another type of PVC that you can print stuff with. Some of the PVCs are kind of nice, but this filament here is very affected by heat, very, very much so. Something else that you want to consider too is that if you've ever soaked ramen noodles in water without heating them up, you'll notice that eventually they just kind of fall apart. This stuff here reacts to some things in that particular way. Maybe more like a wheat biscuit, cereal type biscuit. That's what I'm seeing right here too. There's a little fiber poking out that reminds me of that, and I keep wanting to eat this. But that's one of the downfalls of it. Another downfall of it is that it is photo and biodegradable. You know, I mean, that kind of makes a problem for having a Native American flute. In the long run, something I'm concerned about is putting it near your mouth. I'm not going to brag about my own flute making experiences and abilities. I've been doing this for most of my life, like 3/4 or more of my life. I'm going to tell you that something that I know that a lot of flute makers may not have known for a long time is one thing that causes flutes to wet out is the moisture in your breath. So in other words, There are enzymes and moisture, and I mean, it's warm. There's a lot of stuff going on in your mouth right now that may affect this particular material. And so that's of concern. That's something that I think should be addressed when deciding you want to buy. And I don't want to tempt any of you, but I have seen low D drones that I charge, I don't even know what I charge, $400 or $500 for, $600. But the low D drones that I make are made out of wood. They are, of course, made by hand, regardless of what presents any particular tool I use. I mean, I've got a grinder, a drill press, routers, planers. So I'm not over here scraping this thing down with a pocket knife like you may have seen some of my videos. I can't afford that amount of time, that luxury of time, in making so many flutes for you. But it does take handwork from me to make a wooden flute for you. So when you buy one of my low D drones, for example, you may even be paying less than other people's wooden low D drones. And there's sometimes it's market, and sometimes it's the type of wood they're made out of, or how we finish them, or whatever. A lot of it's experience, and I know what time is worth, and I still feel, honestly, as what I still consider myself to be an artist, and my wife and my oldest boy who's in here making flutes with us 5 days a week, I still consider that to be selling myself short on time. So FYI. A 3D printed low D drone I've seen for sale for about $100. And a lot of you are thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to have to go look and find me one of these right now. By the time I've told you this, the price has probably changed, to be honest with you. Thinking about it from a business standpoint, I know that they're pushing the bill right there. They're pushing the letter on how much they're spending on this material, the time that because they're putting this together for you, which I'm starting to show you right now, putting it together. But they're putting it together for you. They are sealing it, I hope, because if you don't seal this thing, it's going to be kind of a less quality sound. I know this from having made other 3D print sound type items, and it's just going to be not really happy anyway for you. So hopefully they're sealing the inside of it. Hopefully, as you see, I'm putting pieces together. I'll do that while I'm talking. Hopefully they're sealing it in such a way that it won't come back apart too, because that could become a problem if you're not careful. And so there's a lot of things that you got to take into consideration here when buying this. And I know that people's time is different in different values, and a lot of people that have never made a Native American flute together might see this as like their golden ticket to making money. And I assure you, this particular range of it, I don't feel like is going to last for a very long time. Not until some other materials are invented to help. I hope this is not going to break. Anyway, some other materials are going to need to be invented to make these things with that isn't going to be photodegradable, biodegradable, bend like a spaghetti noodle in the sun. Please don't break. There's a lot to consider here that some people may think and some people may not think about. I will tell you one thing about experience of making Native American flutes. I can look at these fingerings and I can tell already. I haven't researched this person. I haven't asked them, because there's countless people, offering 3D print products. I've urged my son to offer some of the ones for the car parts that he's designed, really more of those than I have. But I've urged him to put those out there for people, because in my particular case, you can't get parts for this particular antique car of mine that I've got two of, and he owns one of. The person that put this together, I feel like, used a design software to come up with this. And I say this because of the shape of the fingerings. Their placement are almost equidistant apart. They were made in such a way that I'm confident you're going to have to keep your finger covering this hole in order for it to play the minor pentatonic scale, which means that they possibly or probably know something about Native American flutes in general, although many of you, if you've never seen my videos on it, I've got videos on 6-hole flutes and how they probably weren't historically like that. I mean, it's kind of a silly notion to think that a race of people who have been stereotyped for not wasting a single piece of buffalo would have drilled an extra hole and kept it covered up most of the time. That's kind of a silly notion. Anyway, some of the additional work that people that are selling these are going to have to do is they're going to have to sand them. There's going to be something to seal this in. Like I said, they're going to have to seal the inside of it. I'm just doing this rather quickly so that we can kind of see. This needs to be sanded. There's a lot of that. But there's a lot of this that is going to require some hand work to make it happen. And so maybe it's financially worth somebody's while to do this. I can't promise you. But I can tell by that first question on Reddit, not putting that person down either, mind you, but I can tell by their question that they either A, had never thought they could afford a Native American drone flute, or B, they whimsically decided to do something. And that's the kind of case I feel like it was, because most people know that this hole needs to stay open. But anyway, something else I didn't like about this material for making a flute out of as well is that when I put my fingers on these holes, because this is so slick, it feels like they're just going to slide right off of it. And maybe some of you think to yourself, well, I've got exotic, $10,000 super glossy flutes made by so-and-so the flute maker. Not Eric, mind you. Eric's a great guy. But somebody else, so-and-so the flute maker. Anyway, they may be proud of that glossy, lacquered wooden instrument that they've got that they call a Native American flute. To me, it doesn't represent what a Native American flute actually is, both historically or what it should sound like. And likewise, this thing being so shiny and glossy, my fingers slipping around, I'm going to have to clamp down on it to make it cover those holes. And that's fine, but I mean, I'm a professional musician before I started making Native American flutes, and that's been a long time ago, but I do know you don't want to keep cramping down on something like that. I mean, clamping down. But you know where I'm going with that. Let's see what it sounds like. Let's see what it sounds like together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal this booger with some material that I'm accustomed to sealing stuff with. I'm going to go back and sand it and try to make it look a little nicer. And then I'm going to do a couple of things like, you really shouldn't put heat around it, but I can't help but feel like I need to burn these holes a little bit. It has air leaks, and those air leaks are what's causing the sound quality to be as it is. And I know that you out there who use 3D printers and who have done this maybe once or twice before, or maybe you're one of those people that are selling them, realize and probably say, oh, well, you didn't seal it. You really got to seal it. But, of course, I mentioned that from the get-go. One thing I did notice about this particular build, and if the designer, who, like I say, I'm going to leave him anonymous, but if he were to see this video, something I would recommend is making this track just a millimeter more shallow, not so deep. And also, I don't know if the video really does it justice, but the bottoms of these tracks here are arced. They're dished, kind of like a half circle. I would make those as flat as humanly possible. They'll play dished, but the better quality sound will come if they were completely flat, which is something I'm going to do. And then I'm going to seal the inside of it. I'm going to sand it, and then I'm going to come back and show you what it sounds like after that. So let's see where we can take this thing and what it's going to take to make it happen, and I'll tell you about that. And like I say, even when it's completed, you still have something. I'm not going to use the phrase ticking time, that other word I probably shouldn't say on YouTube, But it does have a life expectancy. Wooden flutes, historical ones that have been made by Native American people, have been discovered that were at least, let me see here, like wood, like a tree, at least 1,500, 2,000 years old. Cane flutes, I think there are some cane flutes in the Americas that were discovered that were 4,000 to 6,000 years old, which is quite a while. I mean, that's got some time on it. And then, of course, there were bone flutes that were discovered that, that were about 8,000 years. This guy here, if it lasts a year, I'll be delighted. If it lasts 2 years, I'll be tickled. If it lasts 3 years, I'll be surprised. But there again, like I say, I'm going to do my best to take care of it and keep it in a place that it can stay safe and what have you, because this is just an experiment for me. I can tell you right off, my son watched the designer's video on this one, and he said it sounded pretty good. And my son is the best musician in the house. He, like myself, has perfect pitch. He has incredible music talents that I don't have. Plays the violin, the piano, and everything else. Drums, his rhythm is incredible. He knows what music sounds like. He's written, he's 17 right now today. He's helped me make some videos in the past, and he's written hundreds of songs himself and made them, created them, produced them. So I trust his idea of what, a good sounding instrument would be like, but I'm the one that holds all the cards on what a good sounding Native American flute should sound like. And I know that if I put two of them side by side, and he heard that one versus a wooden one that's made the way that we make them, I feel like he would probably agree with me. But I'm looking forward to making this thing sound as good as I possibly can, and like I said, I want to share with you what it takes to do that. If you want to consider the notion of 3D printing your own Native American flute or buying a 3D printed Native American flute, there's some things you got to consider in that particular mindset. So anyway, let me go do all this to it. I'm not going to make you watch that part of the video, and I'll come back and we'll see what it sounds like after that. Okay, so I wanted to show you a couple of the things that I've done. I know it's not beautiful. I wasn't shooting for pretty right away. You can see all the glue where I've glued these seams over and over and over and over again. I've also swabbed the inside of these two chambers out with some super glue. Couple of different grades of it that I use. One day we'll get into talking about the grades of super glue and where I get them from. I've been pretty happy with them for the last couple of years we've been using. It's a great product and a great price point, and everything works out good about it. So this thing is like Mondo glued together. Flexes still a little bit. That's to be expected. It kind of looks like shredded wheat inside, I have to be honest with you. One thing you'll notice is I've sanded these areas down, the top of the tracks here. I've sanded them just lightly, just to keep them nice and flat. And I've also used a burning tool. I don't recommend using a burning tool on plastic or any kind of heat source anywhere around this stuff, but I used a burning tool to kind of flatten this out a little bit, and then I went back over it and hit it with a file. Same thing on the inside to clean it out. If you'll notice too, you don't see any more hair fibers up inside of it. I really did a number on that. And I'm going to tell you my biggest pet peeves with this flute at the end of the video. But while we go here, I'm going to show you and tell you what the difficulties are in playing it and what have you. So one thing I didn't mention is the reason I sealed it off so many times. The reason I spent so much time sealing this thing was because the drone chamber would play, and it actually sounded good. The drone chamber did. Any of you that aren't familiar with the terminology or don't know much about Native American flutes or are just thinking about 3D printing something, it's easy to figure out. The drone chamber is the one without the fingerings. Some drones have multiple playing chambers or multiple drone chambers, and some may go another direction altogether, but I think I'm just going to put 2 twists on that one. Anyway, the drone chamber on this one actually sounded pretty good from the start, which is amazing because I didn't expect it to sound very good at all. But keep in mind, that's just one note. And as a flute maker, the most important thing that I didn't mention in that, there we go, was that it is incredibly easy to play one note really well when it comes to the fingerings, regardless of if they're difficult to cover or easy to cover. They can still play different quality tones of each fingering, so keep that in mind. But I'm going to cover all the holes, and I'm going to cramp down on it really tight, which is something I usually talk against in any of my how to play videos, because that will make your fingers really sore after a while. I'm going to play the drone chamber. Really need to slide this back a little bit. It has a tendency to overblow too, meaning it's going to jump octave real easy. I'll show you. So some of the things I did to try to combat that was I filed the inside of the track there down so it dipped down a little bit. That usually works well on wooden flutes. This guy, but that actually sounds pretty good. Let's see what this side sounds like. Not as bad as it did when I first tried to do it. The reason is because, like I say, I've sealed it so many times. Complete transparency here. 3D printed musical instruments with any type of 3D printing. I don't care where they're coming from. If the air chamber is 3D printed, there's always going to be micro fine pores in it. And I don't know if maybe a 3D printer, like a commercial one that's running inside of a machine that maintains the entire machine's core temperature as the climate of the inside of the machine. I don't know if that would help any. I don't think so. I really don't think so. But it's not, anyway, it's just not something that makes me really pleased. I'm going to play just the flute side. So a couple of little minor things here. Like I say, the notes aren't in tune. They're a little this and a little that, and that's cool because, like I said, you can see that the person used a online calculator to determine those, or maybe they used AI like in my other video. I think it was a calculator though, and calculators don't make up for human, variances and variables. So that top note's really flat, and it would bug me, except for I'll probably go in and tune it if I wanted to keep this guy for demonstration purposes. Let's see. Let's play the two chambers together and see what it sounds like. If you notice immediately, the drone chamber, which I had commented on the quality of tone that it produced, is actually substantially louder than the flute chamber. And any of you flute makers out there that are making a wooden drone flute, and you find out that your drone chamber is louder than your flute chamber, there's a way to fix this. If the drone chamber has less air supply, then it's going to be quieter. That's really it. One thing about putting less air on one side than the other, though, as many of you may know, if you blow soft, you make the flute go flat, and if you blow hard, it makes it go sharp. So reducing and restricting the airflow on this side is going to cause that side to go flat. If you do that, it may cause the flute to go out of tune. If you're making a drone, once again out of wood, not out of plastic here, but there's ways to combat that in the end. I do have drone making videos that they'll help you with intonation and what have you. As a matter of fact, when we set this video down today, we're actually going to start on a drone making video of a different type, and it's something you might be interested in. But like I say, if this chamber is out of tune from this chamber, you just have to go and tune it. There's so many ways to do that, and I do talk about that in some other drone videos. But like I said, with the plastic and 3D printed, you don't know if this chamber is going to be louder than that one until it's finished. So there's no going in and changing your design to accommodate it. It's just the fact that this needs to be worked on with hand tools, and you're very limited with what kind of hand tools you can work on it with. I mean, I can go in and do a little of this and a little of that, but it's just, the amount of work that goes into making this flute, I could have built one out of copper or stainless steel and spent the same amount of time on it. So copper and stainless steel are already, they're available. You don't have to 3D print those, so you can just drill the holes out. You may even be, not me, you may even be happier with the end product. I love my silver transverse flute that I play. I've probably played it in 1 or 2 videos, but I really like the sound of the Native American flute. It does not sound like a silver transverse flute. It doesn't sound like a penny whistle or a fife or a lot of things. It is very unique. And sound quality to me is so critical that 3D printing one, I was feeling like that was a bad idea from the beginning. I've been making Native American flutes for about 38 years now. I really felt like it was a bad idea from the start. I'm not cursing this little guy because he's doing his best. And if you want to mess around with it, more power to you. Like I said, there are people that are selling these online right now, 3D printed drones. And I know with the amount of work I put into this one, that it's not worth it for me to make these and sell them. I personally don't know how somebody else is unless they've streamlined a few features that didn't come with this pattern, with this build. But like I said, all in all, it was fun to do because I've been making flutes for most of my life, and I wanted to see what happened, and that was cool. But I'm just not really. I would have been much happier with a poorly made wooden flute than I would have with this one. So, and I'm not dinging the guy that made it either. He did a fantastic job designing this. I know the work that goes into designing something like this. Because I've designed some CNC patterns, which we use regularly in the shop, which you'll get to see some of in the next video, and in one of my previous videos, the agave flute video, if you haven't seen that. That was kind of a neat one. But I've designed and helped my son design some 3D printed items, and like I said, there's a lot of work that goes into that. More power to anybody that comes up with that kind of thing. Doing this on a regular occasion, 3D printing stuff, designing stuff, finding out what works and don't work, that's what's going to cause the industry to design and make better materials and systems. And like I said, even a heated carriage for the entire device might have caused it to seal some of the microfiber pores inside of it. But there again, it's a 3D printed flute. It's a plastic flute. It's just not a real good example of what I like to hear for a Native American flute. Pretty cool. A lot of fun. It was definitely great. And one other one that sounded really great too that I made out of an alternate material that nobody's watched in a long time you might be interested in was a flute that I made out of a cardboard wrapping paper tube. Had a little bird, origami bird sitting on top of it. That is actually one of the greatest sounding flutes I've ever made out of a cardboard tube. Really something kind of cool. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Like I said, if this is the first video you've seen of mine, or if you're interested in making your own Native American flutes, I've got tons of videos on that. It's kind of like my thing. So feel free to check them out. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok often. Some of the other platforms like on Facebook and Twitter, now X, if that tells you what time period this video come from. It is something we do on occasion, but not very often really. But Instagram and TikTok we do make quite a few videos on, and here on YouTube. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Like I say, come back and see us really soon. Don't forget to check out our website, which is bluebearflutes.com, bluebearflutes.com, where we sell the latest and greatest Native American flutes made out of wood that you can find. So you guys take care. Come and check us out on our website. And don't forget, I do have a book on making Native American flutes as well. It's something you probably ought to look into. It's The Art of Native American Flute Making by Charlie and Jesse Mato-Toyela. Hope to see you guys again very soon. Happy flute playing and happy flute making. You know, something else I probably should have told them was this cord is actually the cord we use on our Google flutes, and I can't break this cord with my hand, but I can break this flute with my hands. However, they both respond the same to fire. Whoop.